She stood on my dock with folded arms and that smug little grin. "Fishing's banned here now," she said. "HOA's orders." I stared at her, still holding my fishing rod. "This is my lake, Karen. My grandfather built this place before your HOA even existed." She didn't flinch. "Doesn't matter. You're part of the community now." The board voted. Then she slapped a bright orange notice on my wooden post that read, "Environmental violation, fishing prohibited." That's how it started. A fake rule, a smug neighbor, and a lie that was about to poison everything. Literally. That evening, I saw two men unloading blue chemical barrels near the lake's edge. They wore reflective vests that said HOA maintenance. I walked over, pretending to check my tackle box. One of them whispered, "Just pour it in fast before sunrise." My gut turned cold. The next morning, the water had a strange film on top. Grayish. Oily. Fish floated belly up near the shore. My dog refused to go near it. I knew something was wrong, but when I called the county, they said HOA claimed it was an approved algae treatment. Except, I'd never approved anything. And neither had the environmental office. I went to Karen's house. She was on her porch with a glass of wine, acting like she'd won a war. "Why'd you do it?" I asked. She smirked. "You refused to follow community rules. We had to act before your little fishing hobby turned the lake toxic." I wanted to laugh at the irony, but my voice was shaking with anger. "You poisoned it yourself," she shrugged. "Prove it." That night I walked down to the lake again. Moonlight glimmered over the dead fish. I picked one up, placed it in a sealed bag, and drove it to a friend, a guy named Ray who worked at the state water lab. I told him to test it quietly. 2 days later, he called. "Man, whatever's in that fish, it's not algae control. It's industrial runoff chemicals. Whoever dumped it knew what they were doing." That was my first confirmation, but what he said next almost made me smile. "Also, I looked into the water system map for your area. Guess where the HOA's drinking supply line comes from?" I said nothing. "Your lake." The silence on my end made him laugh. "Guess Karma's got a quick delivery system." I went back home with a plan forming in my head. If they wanted a war over water, I'd let them dig their own hole first. I started collecting footage. The barrels, the trucks, the HOA letters. Every night I'd sit in my cabin editing the clips together. A week later, Karen knocked on my door. Her voice was trembling now. "We need to talk. The neighborhood's reporting strange smells in their tap water." I leaned against the doorframe. "Oh, really? Maybe you should call your maintenance team. They seem to know a lot about what goes in the lake." Her eyes darted away. "We didn't mean for this to happen. You'll fix it, right? You own the property." I smiled, the same way she had when she banned me from fishing. "Remember when you said I'd prove it? Well, I did." Her face went pale. Before she could speak, I played the video on my phone, the one showing her men dumping the barrels. Her voice cracked. "You can't post that. The HOA will—" "Oh, I'm not posting it," I interrupted. "I'm sending it to the environmental agency, the county board, and your insurance provider." That night, the sound of sirens echoed through the neighborhood. Hazmat teams cordoned off the lake and investigators started taking samples. Karen stood outside in her robe, watching them drag out barrels marked hazardous waste. For once, she didn't have a single word to say. But I wasn't done yet. There was still something she didn't know. Something that would change everything about who she thought she was messing with. When the inspectors showed up the next morning, I was already standing by the dock, coffee in hand, pretending to be surprised. They were in full hazmat suits taking readings and photos, while Karen stood across the road pacing like a trapped animal. One of the officers, a tall woman with a badge on her chest, approached me. "You the owner of this property?" "Yeah," I said, handing her a folder I'd been preparing all week. "These are copies of the land deeds, the old environmental clearance, and the footage of who dumped those barrels." She flipped through it, eyebrows rising higher with every page. "You've been busy. Let's just say I like keeping receipts." By noon, they had confirmed what I already knew. The HOA had illegally ordered chemical disposal through a shady contractor. The stuff wasn't even certified for residential use. But when they tried to trace the order, it led to one name, Karen Hollis, George president and self-proclaimed environmental guardian. When the officer walked over to her, I saw her hands trembling. "Ma'am," the officer said, "we need to ask you some questions about these disposal orders." Karen stammered, It, it wasn't me. I only approved algae treatment. Someone else must have. The officer cut her off. Your signature is on every invoice. Her face drained of color. The neighbors started gathering, whispering, recording. People who used to cheer her on now looked at her like she was a criminal. Because she was, one guy muttered. Wait, that's why our water smells like bleach? Another woman shouted, you poisoned all of us. Karen tried to speak over them, but her voice was drowned out. For someone who'd ruled the HOA like a queen, she looked small now, helpless and cornered. I should have felt satisfied, but I wasn't done yet. Because there was something bigger going on. That night, my friend Ray called again. Hey man, you might want to sit down for this. We ran a deeper analysis. The chemical levels are way over federal limits. The EPA's stepping in. EPA? I repeated. Yeah. They're sending an investigation team. That lake's part of a regional water table. This isn't just an HOA issue anymore. It's a state-level contamination case. For the first time in days, I smiled for real. Guess karma's got backup. When I hung up, I saw flashing lights outside again. Karen's driveway was blocked by county trucks, her yard filled with officers carrying documents. I walked over casually as she argued with them. This is harassment. She screamed. You can't just storm onto my property. One of the officers replied calmly, Ma'am, this is a federal warrant. Her jaw dropped. Federal? I stepped forward slowly. You might want to start reading the fine print next time before signing off on poison. She glared at me. You set me up. No, I said quietly. You set yourself up when you messed with the wrong lake. The officer next to me looked over. You seem pretty calm about all this, Mr. Walker. Most folks would be furious. I gave him a small grin. I've been through worse, he raised an eyebrow. Military? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. My silence was enough. The next day, the story hit the local news. HOA president investigated for environmental contamination. Dozens affected. They showed my lake on the screen, surrounded by yellow tape. Karen's photo was right beneath the headline. The comment section online was brutal, but I wasn't celebrating. I was already looking deeper. Something about those barrels bothered me. The labeling, the codes, the contractor's name. I opened the footage again and zoomed in on one of the barrels being unloaded. The label said, Westvale Chemical Storage, Government Disposal Division. Government. My heart dropped. Karen was arrogant, but she wasn't powerful enough to pull strings like that. Someone bigger was behind this. Someone who wanted this land for more than just a fishing ban. And I had a feeling I was about to find out exactly who. The next few days were quiet, too quiet. No HOA meetings, no angry notices, no Karen pacing on her porch. But silence never meant peace. It meant someone was plotting. I was sitting on my porch one evening, watching the sunset reflect over the dead lake, when a black SUV rolled up my gravel driveway. No markings, tinted windows. Two men stepped out, both in suits, both trying too hard to look casual. One flashed a badge. Mr. Walker? I'm Agent Douglas, Environmental Compliance Division. Funny, I said, leaning on the railing. The real division already came and left. You boys are late. They exchanged a glance. We just have a few follow-up questions about the contamination. Mind if we come in? I smiled thinly. Actually, I do mind. The taller one took a step forward. This is a federal matter. So is trespassing, I replied, and pointed at the camera mounted above my porch light. Smile for the livestream. They froze. The shorter one tried to hide his irritation. We're not your enemies, Mr. Walker. We just want cooperation. I stared at them for a long second before saying quietly, Then why do your badges look like they were printed at a gas station? That did it. The taller one's hand twitched toward his waist. But before he could move, the sound of tires crunching gravel came from behind them. Real law enforcement this time. Sheriff's units. Karen must have seen it from her window because I heard her door slam shut across the street. The real sheriff stepped out, nodding at me. These guys bothering you again, Walker? I shrugged. They were just about to explain why a fake government division is showing up on private property. The two men didn't wait to answer. They bolted. The deputies took off after them, but the SUV sped away, vanishing down the road. When the sheriff turned back to me, his tone had changed. You sure you don't want to tell me what's really going on here? I exhaled. I think someone wanted this lake cleared out. Not for fishing and for what's underneath. He frowned. Underneath? Yeah, I said slowly. My grandfather built this property during World War II. He used to say there were things buried near the lake, something about an old government project. I never believed him, until now. That night I went into my shed and pulled out the old property blueprints. The edges were yellowed and torn, but right there near the shoreline, drawn in faded ink, was a small rectangle labeled Substructure Access. I grabbed a flashlight and walked down to the lake, the air thick with humidity and tension. The moonlight shimmered across the surface as I followed the map's markings to a section near the northern edge, a patch of soil that looked recently disturbed. I dug for nearly an hour until my shovel hit metal. When I wiped the dirt away, I saw it, a thick steel hatch rusted and chained shut. It wasn't part of any home project. It was military grade. My pulse quickened. I remembered my grandfather's words before he passed. If they ever come for the lake, it's not about the water. It's about what's buried below it. I took a deep breath, snapped a photo, and sent it to Ray. Within minutes, he called back. You're not going to believe this. That logo on the hatch, it's from a decommissioned government research program, the same division that supplied those chemical barrels. So the HOA was just a cover, I said quietly. Exactly, Ray replied. They poisoned the lake to keep people away, not to stop you from fishing. I stood there staring at the hatch, my mind racing. Suddenly, a flashlight beam hit me from behind. Karen's voice cut through the night. Step away from that hatch, I turned slowly. She was holding a small pistol, her hands shaking but her eyes hard. You don't understand, she said. This isn't just about me. They told me to keep everyone off this land. I didn't have a choice. I raised my hand slightly. You always have a choice, Karen. Her lip trembled. Not when they threaten your family. For a brief second, her mask cracked. The arrogant HOA queen replaced by a scared woman tangled in something far darker. But before I could say another word, headlights flashed from the road. More SUVs, black, no plates. Karen's eyes widened. They're here. She looked at me, desperate. You have to hide that footage. They'll kill us both. I glanced at the hatch, then at her trembling hands, and just like that, the night exploded with chaos. Engines revving, doors slamming, and men shouting as they spread across the yard with flashlights. Whatever this was, it had just turned into something way bigger than a neighborhood feud. The night turned into chaos. Voices shouting, boots thudding against gravel, beams of light cutting through the fog. I ducked behind an old oak tree, pulling Karen with me as engines roared by the lakeside. She whispered, breath trembling, "They can't find that hatch. They'll bury everything, us included." I looked at her, the same woman who'd once taped fake HOA warnings on my door, now shivering beside me. Then we make sure they can't. From my pocket, I pulled out the small device I'd been carrying all week, a GPS tracker with a live uplink. I pressed the red button. Somewhere miles away, Ray's computer would now be recording every movement and location around this lake. Backup plan, she whispered. Always, I said. The men fanned out, armed with heavy flashlights and radios. Their leader barked orders. Check the shoreline. No one leaves this property. Karen's eyes widened. That's him. He's the one who gave me the barrels. I peeked through the branches. The man in charge wasn't HOA. He was government or something close. Black uniform, no insignia, an earpiece blinking red. He moved like he owned the night. We needed to move fast. I led Karen along the tree line until we reached my old boathouse. Inside, I unlocked a wooden crate and pulled out a small metal case. She stared. What is that? I snapped it open. Inside were old security files, encrypted drives, and my military ID. You weren't wrong about one thing, Karen. This isn't about fishing. But you picked the wrong guy to scare off land. Her eyes widened. You were military? Task Force Recon, Environmental Response Division. She blinked. So you already knew? No, I cut her off. But now I do. And I know how to finish this. I plugged one of the drives into my old laptop and opened a secure channel. Ray's voice came through, crackling over static. Man, what's going on out there? I'm seeing pings all over your property. They're here, I said quietly. And they're guarding something under the lake. Then you're not going to believe this, Ray said, his tone changing. I dug deeper into the division registry. That government disposal division? It's a defunct cover project used decades ago to hide illegal dumping for private contractors. They used community HOAs to mask land acquisitions. So this was never about the neighborhood, I muttered. Nope, Ray said. They've been trying to reclaim old sites to erase evidence. I looked at Karen. That's why they came to you. They needed control of the land and you gave it to them. Her eyes welled up. They said it was for the environment. They showed me papers, seals, everything. And you didn't check, I said flatly. Before she could answer, gunfire echoed outside. Short bursts, controlled, professional. I shut the laptop, grabbed Karen's arm, and we sprinted toward the dock. We ducked behind the old fishing shed as a group of men reached the hatch site. One of them shouted, "Seal it! No one can find this place again." Karen gripped my sleeve. "If they close it, it's over." "Not yet." I pulled out my phone and hit send. The encrypted drive's contents, video proof, contract copies, license plates, even the GPS map, were uploaded to 3 destinations: the EPA, the state attorney, and a local journalist Ray trusted. A small vibration confirmed it. Upload complete. Suddenly, floodlights from the men's SUVs flickered and went dark. A siren blared in the distance, then 2, then 5. Police, county, and state troopers stormed the road. The black-suited men scattered like shadows. Some ran to the woods, others jumped into their trucks trying to flee. One tried to grab Karen, but I stepped forward, twisting his wrist and slamming him down. "Wrong veteran to mess with," I muttered. Within minutes, the area was surrounded. Officers in tactical vests moved in, shouting commands. "Hands up!" "Drop your weapons." Karen stood frozen, watching as the officers restrained the fake agents one by one. Her face was pale, her voice barely a whisper. "They're going to blame me for everything." I looked at her and said softly, "Maybe. But if you tell the truth now, you can help clean up what they started." The sheriff approached, his boots splashing through the mud. "Walker, you mind telling me why half the state just got an anonymous evidence drop from your IP address?" I smiled faintly. "Because I like sharing the truth." He exhaled, shaking his head. "You might have just saved this whole county from a lawsuit that would have buried us." Karen was led away in handcuffs, but this time she didn't fight. She just whispered, "I didn't know." I believed her. At least partly. Weeks later, the EPA declared the lake a protected zone. Cleanup teams worked day and night to restore it. Reporters called me a whistleblower, a hero, a veteran who saved his town. But for me, it wasn't about headlines. One morning, I stood on the dock again, holding my fishing rod. The water was clear now, alive again. The reflection of the sun rippled like gold. As I cast the line, I thought of my grandfather's words about land, truth, and what it means to protect something that's yours. Karen's house was empty, the HOA office sign gone for good. And the government men? They never came back. I looked across the quiet water and smiled. "Funny," I said softly, all that poison just to hide the truth. But in the end, the lake healed faster than they did. You can poison water, but you can't poison justice.